welcome to Awaken Your Human Design. My name is Moni. This is Danny, and today we are continuing our Godheads series by talking about Hades and Prometheus, as we're going to be getting into the Heaven Trigram.
This is just so interesting, Moni, because we get to go through 4 hexagrams at a time and help determine sort of this process by which it externalizes into the world. It's being called like these godheads, but we could literally come up with any name for it. It's just interesting to obviously pick these mythical things. It ties it together. It's a new way to tie together the wheel.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like they're the spokespeople. Like
Yeah.
Godheads is a very dramatic sounding kind of
Yeah.
title, the Godheads, and they're these deities and Hades and Prometheus. It's like these really big names, but it's basically like the spokesperson. And Ra had a flair for the dramatic and was good at
Yeah.
marketing. So it's interesting to continue the idea of the trigram and that's being externalized by the spokesperson or the Godhead.
Mm-hmm. No, I love it.
If you would like to book a reading with Danny or myself, check out the QR code here right above my head. The code is also down in the description box below. Be sure to use code AWAKEN for an extra 10% off so you can save a little bit and you can hang out and talk with either Danny or myself.
Yeah, I can't wait. We've already had one booking so far. It's really good. This is how things start, pretty soon. I think it'll be really good. I can't wait to get into more people and help them see them. You know what I mean? They want it. They just don't know it yet. They'll be there.
And if you'd also like to donate to our channel, the QR code above. If you've been enjoying what we're teaching, if you'd like to support us and help us grow, then feel free to check that out. The link is also down in the description box below if that's easier.
Yeah, we put out a lot of value. I mean, like truly a lot of value. If someone just watches our show through the series of various things, they will be able to, have a firm foundation. I wicked appreciated, man. Send it in like I would if I were watching.
Absolutely. And thank you to everyone who can. And just to your point, yeah, like we've definitely developed a whole course load. Like if you went through our videos and watched it section by section, like you would get a solid course load.
What is human design
Yeah,
and how to
absolutely.
read it?
Because that's pretty much what this has been for me is just like this show is kind of like my human design PhD thesis where I'm going to go
Mm,
through all the things and make it pretty and have my own library and share it in my own creative kind of way. So I feel like anyone who kind of catches us in this early phase is like, you're going to get a lot of bang for your buck because it's free.
wickedly. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Isn't it true?
Absolutely. So thank you to everyone who is watching, liking, subscribing, hanging out with us, asking questions. We love having you. Thanks for being with us, and let's get into it. I always love this image because it's really, really pretty, so I'd love to include it. But we have our human design mandala wheel focusing on these 16 different godheads, right? 16 archetypal themes that are the spokesperson for a specific one of the 8 trigrams, the I Ching trigrams. And so, like Danny was saying, these are externalizers, these figureheads that are kind of representing the energy of each of their trigrams. And so when we started this series is all the way back here with Maya at the beginning of the green section. And so Maya starts with gate 2, where it's full yin. It's earth over earth. All the lines are the broken or separated lines. So we've made it all the way through the quarter of civilization. We just finished up the quarter of duality here in yellow. And so now we're actually going to be starting into the quarter of mutation here in blue, where we're going to be beginning with Hades. And Hades
Ruled by Sirius, right?
yeah, it's by Sirius, and we'll totally get into that in a couple of pages. But yeah, Hades starts off with gate 1, which is heaven over heaven. So whereas the first half of this series, it's been this very yin, feminine-led kind of energy, now we're shifting over to the half of the year where the yang is leading the foundation.
4 hexagrams per godhead, 8 trigrams per the 2 godheads. I'm talking about the
Trigrams,
trigrams that stay the same for the 2 godheads. The 3 lower
okay.
lines stay the same. I was breaking it down in my own way. So
Okay,
someone out there
cool.
will get it and 8 won't. It's not my fault. It's perfect. So yeah, I just like watching the symmetry. That's what's happening. I like watching the synchrony of the movement of the lines and the numbers and just how they work out. It's yep.
Oh yeah, it's absolutely beautiful. The Godheads are super fun, and it's just a really cool image to
And they really do
visualize it.
speak. They speak for these gates, and they speak in this 4th line way. It would have been interesting. I didn't even think about it to sort of always added in what the fourth line of these hexagrams were as we listed their names and stuff, but maybe that's innately in there in the language. It's just they're speaking, each one does. I guess you could really intuit what they are. I mean, I loved when we did Jesus,
Minerva.
Christ, and Minerva, and moving on into the four ways. This is just so good. So I'm ready to move.
We did a full episode breaking down this whole chart because I know it looks kind of confusing, but we did a whole video on that. So I will link that in the corner and I'll link it down in the description below, but we'll go through like a little mini breakdown. But if you want the full, check out that other video. And so here we're basically seeing how we go from the base yin yang. So if you go the step above this, it's like the all, the creator, the source of all, that's then represented and broken down within the yin and the yang. The yin being the feminine, it's these open lines, and the yang is this masculine solid line. So I'm pretty sure most people have seen the yin and the yang because you have the yin side with a little bit of the yang, and then you have the yang side with a little bit of the yin, and it's this balance of the yin and the yang that is the foundation of everything.
I want to say one thing about the yang, just because it's so important. In 1781, when we shifted into the nine-centered being, and we left behind the seven chakra being and turned into the nine, that look at the seven chakras, it looks like yang. And we left the yang world and we moved into, it's not the yin world, we moved into the balance between the both, because we're a mixture between right and left. We're a mixture of men and women, obviously. And it becomes this mixture inside the genome that lets us finish waking up. Neither one could wake up on their own. And so 1781, we finally got a break. And so let's wake up and take advantage of that.
Yeah, it's the complementary balance of opposites between the yin and the yang and how much we need one another and how those work together really well when they
My
work really
God.
beautifully.
Yes, yes, we do. I mean, historically speaking, wasn't there an age where it was the yin? And then there's a long age of just the yang, masculine dominated, da da da. And now that's giving way to the cooperative, more communal version of that.
Yeah, there's a deeper understanding and appreciation of both sides and being able to work together. So to continue explaining this chart, we start off with the yin on one side and the yang on the other, and we are going to basically double that up underneath it and then add another yin and a yang on top. And then same thing over here with the yang. We duplicate the double yang and then we put another yin and a yang on top. And then you have these four base pairs. And if you continue that on further, we're just extrapolating this out. So here you have this double yin. So we're going to duplicate it underneath and then add another yin and a yang. And then you're going to do the same with the yin with the yang on top. We're going to duplicate it, put another yin and a yang on top. Same thing here with the yang with the yin on top, duplicate it, add another one on top. And finally, the double yang, duplicate it, add another yin and a yang on top. And so then you have the 8 trigrams. So again, we have the longer video, check that out where we really break it down in detail. But basically, it's how we go from a single yin and yang and we extrapolate it out into these 8 trigrams of the I Ching.
And unlike its quarter on the other side, civilization, this is the masculine electric. I like this language, the
Yeah.
electric and the magnetic. And we're now in the two solid yang lines farthest to the right. That is the genetic base pair ruling this whole quarter. It will be ruling the 8 gates that we read from 1 up to 11, halting before we get to gate 10, now the vessel of love.
The Human Design Mandala wheel. This is a full hexagram representation of it. It's one of my favorite images. So basically, this is a foundation that we're starting with. And then throughout this episode, we're going to cut it down into smaller pieces. And then at the very end, our last 2 sections, we're going to talk about the mythology of the Godheads and the specific gates that they represent and are kind of the spokespeople for. So this is kind of our base foundation before we start cutting up the pie.
Again, I like how at the very end, to really see the rest of the wheel, you have to go all the way out to the hexagrams now to see the 6 lines of the 6th line of all of this. It's interesting to look at it this particular way. As always, the 6th line is on the roof, so we're dealing on the inside.
Break it down a little bit to make it a little bit easier to digest. When we're looking at the Godheads, then we're looking at this 4th line out, right? So you start off with the yin yang, then you have those 4 base pairs where it's 2 lines, and then it's the 8 trigrams because they have 3 lines. And if you go to this 4th line out, this is where it's the Godheads. And so it's like, if you know someone with a fourth line personality and they're the networker and the opportunist and they're really social and they're here to externalize that energy, we can kind of start to understand this role of these Godheads, these representatives.
The wheel shows it this way. So anyone looking at it, looking for 6 lines, just realize we're stopping at the 4th line here.
Now, this one we're talking about specifically the quarter of mutation. This is this quarter that we're currently entering into. And so the quarter of mutation moves through totality. All mutation comes into the world. Program initiates mutation. Change in information frequency takes time for the information to get here. And within this quarter, it's purpose fulfilled through transformation. And the mystical theme is accepting death.
So as I look through this again, I start to see that the acceptance of death is one part of it. The acceptance of death is one theme, but the rest of the actual theme is this mutativeness to grow again. Because, I mean, we here on Earth, we don't accept death until it's the last day. So all the rest of the time, we're just sort of trudging through winter. You know what I mean? We were designed to actually transcend that whole, not the acceptance of death part, because no one really dies. We just move on, obviously. It's just the vehicle that ceases at some point. I don't even know what the rule is on that technically in the long run, but the acceptance becomes this mutative process. And then we get into the 4 ways, and this becomes the way of approach. The whole thing is going from the yang energy of 1 all the way to the approach of 19. The way of this quarter, based on the cross of the 4 ways, is this gate 19's arm of it that says, we approach now the new beginning. This is we approach the new beginning, that whose voice is, I remember. Just like God's very first thing to do is he struck the universe with sound. He said a word or something like that, right? Isn't that sort of how it all started?
God created the word. Yeah.
Well, I mean, he spoke.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. He
Yeah.
spoke and there was the world.
Yep. Yes. Yes. And we're on approach to that. This is a mutative, empowering process to get joy, to bring in power, to bring in the drive, to bring in all the things and the mystery and every last thing that want to get there. The stuff that sort of almost doesn't matter during initiation. This is the rambunctious side smashing into the movement towards the final new beginning. And listen to the words, the final new beginning. There is no final new beginning. We're on a circle. But to mutation, there is, because it's going to move into 13.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so each time they come to their stopping point, but then they're going to repeat, obviously, next year. And then this moves into larger global cycles, obviously, you know, which we'll talk about, like 20,000, 26 or 9,000 year epochs of time and so forth.
Yeah, and this idea of transformation, it's like I liken it to like a butterfly in the chrysalis, like when it's in the cocoon. It is a death. It is an acceptance of death. It's going to turn into goo and completely like reconfigure and reformulate to go and create into something else. So that acceptance of things coming to their end in order for them to shift and transform for the new things to come in.
Yeah, wickedly so. And again, the acceptance of the whole death, but the mutative part is the withering. You can see it as the withering, but that's for all the trees outside. We're the juxtaposition of that. And the plants, and the top of my potato plants, they're basically done. I'm pretty sure they're doing no more photosynthesis, you know, so I got to go dig them up. And that's this time we're moving into it. But that's not us. We're the juxtaposition of that. We're the witnessers. So we're the experiencer of it and the transcender of it at the same time. That's why I said the transcendence. One day we don't finish the transcendence part, at least the body doesn't, and that's okay, but the rest of the time we do.
So here we're looking at Sirius, because Sirius is the star that is the base pair that represents this quarter of mutation, the double yang lines. And so on the right, the constellation is Canis Major, and then the highlighted star is Sirius. So Sirius is the brightest star in the sky, part of Canis Major, which is the dog star. It looks like a dog if you go look at it. And it's next to Orion because it's like
It
Orion's dog.
does.
Yeah, yeah, it's like Orion's hunting dog.
Is it
And
next to Orion
yeah, it's really
in the
close there.
sky?
Yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
it's right there. Yeah. So Sirius represents brilliance, mystery, and spiritual significance across cultures and takes us into the unknown and catalyzing shifts, redefining what it means to be human. Powerful to close the cycle. Sirius is a cosmic catalyst that embodies the force of evolution, encouraging a leap beyond the known. Sirius is a star that burns brightest, urging humanity to evolve, adapt, and embrace the mystery of what's next. closing the mandala's wheel with a promise of renewal.
Closing of the wheel. We're back at gate 19 for the whole quarter. Getting excited about talking about the beginning of this quarter because that's where we're going to be starting with our two Godheads. And so this whole thing begins with this giant yang-like punch. It's this movement where the first four hexagrams are loaded down with the most amount of yang that you'll see out of any four hexagrams, essentially. It's a lot. So let the dog march forward. I think Sirius is the place and the time and the non-withering that brings the consciousness crystals basically back online. Initiation is the awakening of mind. This is like the preparation of finishing mind.
So now we're further breaking down and cutting up that pie chart. And so here we have the trigram of heaven. The Godhead of Hades represents the externalization of the heaven trigram. So the heaven trigram is creativity in pure form, determining nature and development of all.
I don't even know what to make of this. Just heaven over heaven for the creative life force that is the most expressive and has the most to do with each other, as it relates to the most expressive part of it. This has got to be besides this section on the wheel on the other side, remember the beginning of civilization was quite individual dominated. This is sheer creative dominated. This becomes what is the expression of gate 2 starting with. So the magnetic monopole has a job to do, and it's to leak out through the 1 and the 8. And that's where we start.
Hades represents gates 1, 43, 14, and 34, and he is the yang externalization of heaven. Hades is the Greek god of the underworld who governs the realm of the dead. Hades symbolizes the inevitable cycle of life and death, the transformative power of endings, and the deep mysteries of existence. Though often seen as dark and foreboding, Hades is also a god of justice, ensuring the balance of life and death is maintained with fairness. Hades embodies raw creative power, inner sovereignty, and he's a force of transformation through self-realization. Pure, unrelenting, self-sustaining energy that drives forward with unshakable will, shaping reality through its own intrinsic knowing. Embracing our strength, breaking through limitations, and trusting in the power of our knowing. Hades calls us to embody the highest expression of personal truth, moving through life with relentless, unapologetic creative force.
As we put all this together, look at how individual and unique this is. 1 and 43, these are the mirrors to each other on the other side of the throat. 14 and 34 are the two wicked sustaining gates out of the sacral, empowering the whole thing. The fact that 14 and 34 are giving credence in this quarter, they're not connected through a life force, but they're bringing the sacral sustainment to the creation. So one says it's expressing love is light, but the very first line is creation is independent of will. And this whole line is about the potential to manifest inspiration without and beyond any limitation. The possibility to break past that ring past knot. I always like to mention that we never seem to see past until moments of gate 1 and all the other individual gates. 43 is the same thing, but the moment of explanation. And it is deaf to the other because 43 is the inner ear. I would put it almost here in a way. This thing is so unique that it needs to undue influence outside of it such that its unique insight can come through. So what is all that saying? This is like, I'm here to inform sooner or later. I'm here to speak. And then 14 brings an abundance that if you look at 14 correctly, you see it's so exalted and it has this keeper of the keys name and it's the channel of the beat that it basically empowers. And what it does is the abundance that it brings is its energy. 14 is the sacral gate that empowers our direction through the monopole. It's not 5, it's not 29, and it's 14 does it almost identically. If you want to look at it this way, the way 59 fires up the solar plex and the way 27 fires up gate 50 in the spleen. And so if the sacral isn't there, the body graph doesn't split into a 9-centered being, technically, to be empowered by that sacral. And then the sacral empowers the direction. So God wanted this whole thing to just like always have sustaining energy to do what? I don't know what the real deal is with Hades. I thought it would be Hades as hell. However, this can't there has to be a transcendence to that somehow, some way, because this is actually the inspiration and the potential to break beyond anything that would be hell and to move towards what? Towards beauty. This is the unique empowerment, then the explanatory empowerment, that from the idea itself, from the notion, from the insight, then the empowerment to move it, and then 34 is the empowerment to literally to not to survive as ourselves during it, meaning guarantee its continuance. We stay ourselves, and then 14 moves it upwards, 43 explains it, ultimately becomes the rationale. 43 becomes the voice of 24's rationale. So that rationale becomes now the explanation as 23 shows up, because we already went by, explains essentially this amazing creation. So what are we doing? We have to wait in the unique pulse for the word. And in our waiting, and by the way, if you look at these first two gates, they are projected 100%. These are parts of projected channels. They wait and they wait and they wait for the creation to suddenly break through the limitation. And that is this quarter. The quarter is always with the potential and ultimately the need and the will do of breaking through the limitations that hamper creativity. This is the creative and the empowerment of it. So that's something that we need as we move into the next four gates. So this is very much looking forward for the human experience, for mankind to not squander and be able to have its creativity in the world and put it forth with great power. So what does that say about Hades? How does that fit in here, all that stuff? Pure, unrelenting, self-sustaining embracing of our strengths, breaking through limitations, trusting in the power of our own knowing. That is actually a really good keynote of everything I just said. So this sounds like an exalted place, if I allow it. The empowerment of the movement towards creativity.
To Prometheus, he is the yin externalization of heaven, and he represents gates 9, 5, 26, and 11. Prometheus is a Greek titan, and Prometheus's act of stealing fire from the gods and giving it to humans not only symbolizes the gift of creativity and intellect, but also represents the awakening of human potential and independence. He gifted humans the ability to create, to transform their environment, and to rise above the limitations imposed upon them by the gods. His act of giving fire is a metaphor for the spark of knowledge, creativity, and enlightenment that empowers individuals to challenge the status quo and strive for a better world. Prometheus embodies quiet yet unwavering force of divine inspiration, patience, and transmission of knowledge to awaken humanity, and does not force change but instead cultivates it, allowing deep insights to take root and grow. Prometheus teaches real empowerment comes not from control, but from the ability to share knowledge in ways that endure beyond the self. Prometheus calls us to trust in divine timing, to hold and nurture wisdom until the world is ready to receive it, and to be a guiding light, one that may not always be recognized immediately, but whose impact shapes the course of history.
If the 1 and the 34 outline the first four, which they do, so the power of the creative, which is individual, by the way. So this is a unique yang force only. We haven't moved into the end. And then the gate of raw power, the power to empower life itself, gate 34, because it empowers our survival directly. Those two things as bookends say we are the raw creative power. And it also says the creative power is the prime power. It's not the power in our muscles to do something necessarily, but although musculature will create the creative, it's the power in the creation itself through the inspiration that we're always receiving. And that's, through this beautiful head center of ours. This one does the same thing, except it's now the receiver of it. Sort of look at the first four as 51, gate 51, and shocking the world into existence. And then 25, look at these four gates as gate 25, the receiver of it. And it's in the language for the yin of this. What does father do? He gets out and he creates the stupid thing, and he might not even tell anyone except his wife makes him tell him. And now the wife, what does she do? She shares it into the family, and she tells her friends, and this is the thing, and da 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 da. In a working world where people are whatever they're doing, or in an archetypal situation, you can reverse those roles, obviously, but at the end of the day, this is the receiver of that, and it shows. It starts out the yin, and so 9 receives the need to ponder all the details of that greatness. Okay, 5 says we're setting the pattern over that. 4 says a powerful voice will transmit that. We're going to transmit that not in any other way than that which would be a powerful voice. And 11 says the light. Its whole thing is the awakening of the light, because its fear is the darkening of the light. So at the end of the day, gate 11, this gate of peace, look at peace like a bright sunny day. Just that is the piece of 11 with like all of its ideas to see the bright light of day. And that piece that 11 has with its ideas, that's part of what helps move it. That's what lets it cope, frankly, because these ideas came from a place of oppression, and they can still be oppressive just because they made it through the confusion factory up there. Doesn't mean we're done with it. 11's got a lot of work to do to make it stimulating at the end of the day. So 9 tames it, 5 fixes it, 26 says it, 11 concretizes it. And the only thing we can ever really pass on a story, that's the thing we pass on first. So 11 helps become basically the concretized version of just the story that passes on. And it has to pass on because this passing on tradition and process, this is more of a process. When you get to 13 and 33, that's the true tradition. But this is the process that fills the tradition over time, sort of like gate 18 drips into gate 48 to build the well of depth. This is very similar. And so that tradition that we're actually just sort of storytelling about to keep part of the history and to tell the stories, that sets up for the core of initiation, started with 13. That becomes the fellowship back into the prodigal. The collective history wakens up through mind, and we start it all over again. So this is the catcher in the rye, baby. This makes it become real, because it can't. The individual is not shared. The individual is always a freak, one way, shape, or form, at least a little bit. The individual is always time warped a little bit out from the collective, because how could they not be? They're mutative and unique at the moment. So this is the collective call and response. This is the collective response to all of that. And still, notice the sacral juice. 4 of the 8 gates are sacral. That's a lot. So this is sacral time, right? This is sacral time. This is response time. This is go time. This is right now time. Mind takes a little bit to get going. Mind is very much projected time to start with. It's all good, but that's what it is. This is no yang time. Yang time, let's move, let's go, let's concretize this thing. Tell a story. Just start talking. Tell a story. What are your ideas? They will be there to feed the beginning of the quarter of initiation and in gate 13. So heaven and heaven in the yin, and before heaven with heaven and the yang. I think it's pretty cool.
So that was the continuation of our Godhead series with Hades and Prometheus as the representatives of the Trigram of Heaven.
What to say about these two? I mean, they got a heck of a job. These two have a heck of a job. I don't know if they were at war with each other, if they got along back in the mythology of it all, but they better be brothers in reality somehow, because they got a lot of work to do in cooperation with one another. We think of the quarter duality as so cooperative, or even civilization, where we had to cooperate, build things. This is an incredibly cooperative time. Incredibly cooperative. It just goes to show all 4 quarters ring with our need to cooperate in order to achieve the communion where we belong, with the beauty and the aesthetic. And this begins this actually also begins the process of each year we have a moment to recognize money isn't everything. In gate 14-1, line 1. In gate 14, line 1, striking up this quarter right near the beginning of it. Money isn't everything, and we keep learning that each time. And creation is independent of will says the same thing. Money isn't everything. Money can't make me be a great artist. And by the way, this is the point where this is the great creative, because these aren't the guys that are the most competitive to be the best. That's collective business and tribal business and collective business that are willing to repeat. You can't be the best unless you're willing to repeat. And that's tribal business. There's collective business. So collective understanding.